Hello defenders, it's day 977 of Russia's three-day invasion of Ukraine. Massive drone strike deflected tonight, Russians lose 2 helicopters, good Ukrainian drones spotted over a Russian airbase and oil refinery. South Korea will help Ukraine fight the DPRK troops, and Russia restores the World War II tanks for real. You're watching Only Facts with Operator Starsky, and we will talk about the most important updates right now. Ukrainian regional services report that the Russian terrorists keep attacking energy infrastructure. Tonight, another massive Shahed attack was deflected. The Air Force confirmed intercepting 41 drones. An impact was reported in Sumy. We don't have any information on casualties at this point, which is rather good. But the Russian strike that happened 2 days ago unfortunately took life of another civilian. Larissa Batalko, a teacher from Borispil, was lethally wounded by a terrorist drone. The doctors did all they could to save her life, but unfortunately the woman could not withstand the injury. Another Russian war crime committed while some leaders out there still can't decide whether the Russian terrorists are good or bad. 2 Russian helicopters were lost yesterday. One of them submerged in the Kerch Strait. The Russians weren't sure themselves whether it was Ka-27, Ka-52 or Mi-28. So the stupid Russian blogger Fighter Bomber edited the same update like 3 times because he's an asshole. Also, Mi-2 merged with the forest in Kirov Oblast. Why did it happen? Well, we're talking about the Russian helicopters here. They're not supposed to fly at all. Actually, when you see a Russian helicopter flying, it's basically a byproduct of having rotor blades. Generally, they were designed to crash and make Russian pilots a better people. Yesterday, happy Russian citizens reported explosions at the oil refinery in Rubizh. It's hard to describe the level of joy among the Russians who in 2022 celebrated the beginning of the war in Ukraine, and just 2 years later they can finally observe their own oil refineries burning. It's such a progress turning from a G8 superpower into a terrorist regime in just 2 years. Also, new explosions were reported at the Russian military airbase Lipetsk 2 earlier yesterday. Fortunately for Russians, no civilian infrastructure was hit, but at the same time, it's not like they really have it anyways. It was confirmed that the South Korean military will help Ukrainians fight the invaders from the DPRK. They will assist the armed forces of Ukraine with producing different messages for the North Koreans, offering them to give up and survive before they become a fertilizer for the Ukrainian sunflowers. But to think about it, back in 2022, we talked that the lack of reaction to the Russian atrocities will serve as enabler for other terrorist regimes. 2 years later, this is exactly what we see when the armed people from a different part of the world now arrive to Russia to fight in Ukraine. How crazy is that? Ask your local politicians. I'd really like to know their opinion. And speaking of terrorists, after American withdrawal from Afghanistan, it was noticed that the relations between Russia and Taliban have improved dramatically. Despite Taliban being still officially recognized a terrorist organization in Russia, their representatives were invited to Moscow multiple times. And recently, Russian Foreign Minister's advisor Zamir Kabulov stated that already decision to exclude Taliban from the list of the terrorist organizations was approved in Russia on the highest level, and soon the happy Russian citizens will be informed about it. The Vatniks called Americans and Europeans Nazi, evil and gay. Now they can fully enjoy their new best friends, North Korea and Taliban. This is such an incredible achievement. The question is, will Antonio Guterres go to Kabul if Afghanistan joins BRICS? Please let me know in the commentaries. The Russian vehicles from the World War II era were spotted at the Russian training camp located in the far east of Russia. On this footage, you can see such museum exhibits as the glorious Soviet T-34, IS-3, as well as heavy self-propelled howitzer ISU-152. Why were these vehicles brought to the Russian training camp? Maybe it's because their command decided to teach its soldiers a bit of glorious Russian history. Well, I don't think so. You see, I served in the military, and generally it's like you take a truck, okay, and load it with soldiers and take them to the fucking museum. There's a lot of World War II museums in Russia, in every city, more than McDonald's, that's for sure. Or maybe the Russians in the Far East were preparing to celebrate the Victory Day. Well, that's unlikely. You see, the Russians only celebrate Victory Day in May, which is half a year away. So what were those vehicles produced 80 years ago doing in the Russian training camp? Well, you might wanna kill me for this version, but I suggest that Russian recruits were given a lecture on how to operate them. Look at these happy faces. I mean, the video was recorded on a potato, but still I suspect that the Russian recruits were extremely happy to get more acquainted with these innovative Russian tanks produced before Gagarin went to space. The tanks that they will be operating and most probably get toasted in. All you wanted to know about the Russian superpower is here, ladies and gentlemen. The World War II tanks, the terrorists, and the nukes. 3 pillars of the Russian supremacy. With that, my friends, I wish you all a beautiful day. Please share your thoughts in the commentaries. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.